It's been a while there since I've went live on YouTube, so forgive me there if you're looking at me moving around watching this video back afterwards. But yeah, I'm going live on YouTube for today's 420 news. I normally do this live on Facebook at 4:20 Irish time on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But today I had a bit of a technical error. There was something draining the CPU on my computer, and it caused some serious lags there over on the Facebook recording. So sadly, the footage I captured there earlier today just wasn't usable. So you guys at YouTube now get the benefit off of that. So yeah, and I get to see what the difference is there on the two audiences. So I'll be repeating the news that I done again earlier. So yeah, it's just a little bit different from before. Normally I just do this stuff straight through, no rehearsals at all. But now I kind of have an idea of what I wanted to say based on earlier's news, so I might change it up a little bit. So today's journey in 420 News is bringing us across the world. We're going to go to Canada, then down to America, then we're going to Australia, New Zealand, back to the UK, and we're going to finish back home in Ireland. So onwards we go, guys. Over to Canada. So I know this isn't the Canadian flag, guys. So I hope it doesn't offend any Canadians out there either. But Canada for me actually was a source of a lot of inspiration. Rick Simpson comes out of Canada. So I don't know if you've heard of this guy at all, but Rick Simpson is a Canadian who was once growing a load of cannabis and extracting the oil from the cannabis and giving that to people who suffered with cancer mostly. He was quite an inspirational guy. There was a documentary put out called "Run from the Cure." Highly recommend people go check that out if you haven't seen it already. But very inspirational guy in what he done. You know, just taking that brave step out there. I think he first treated himself with some cannabis oil for a skin cancer that he had, and it just all grew from there. Then really, what he done. He had to go on exile from Canada actually because the Canadian government were hunting him. I wonder why. Giving cannabis to people for free, like, geez, what a criminal he was. And yeah, he spent a lot of time then in Europe actually, in Czech Republic, I think. Afterwards, got to chat with him a couple of years back in CIT. Had a little interview with him there. Sadly, I never recorded any of that. I wish I did now. Actually, would have made for some great content to have here now today. But sadly, no, we never did this. Look, missed opportunities, and we learned from our past. But Canada, why it makes the news today in today's 420 news is basically Canada back in October 2018 legalized recreational cannabis. So here we have what is legal in Canada as of October 2018. So people can possess up to 30 grams of cannabis, dried or the equivalent fresh, which strangely the equivalent fresh is only 1 gram of dried cannabis is the equivalent of 5 grams wet. But I kind of know that up to 80% of the plant could be water when you freshly harvest it. So like that's yeah, it's not right. I don't think, like, for a freshly harvested cannabis plant, 1 gram could be of dried cannabis could be equal to almost 10 grams of wet cannabis. So they're doing a 1 to 5 in terms of the equivalent there of the wet cannabis to dry. So that would mean the person could have up to 150 grams only of wet cannabis. Not a whole lot anyway, but yeah, you can share then up to 30 grams of cannabis with a friend. So you can share almost up to, over an ounce. You can buy dry or fresh cannabis from only a licensed retailer, that is. And we'll talk a little bit about the licensing there shortly. And then in provinces and territories that don't have a licensed retailer, they can order it online. That's good if it wasn't for the fact that the online actually was burdened with massive backlogs where people were waiting like 3 to 6 months there for their cannabis to arrive. Quite ridiculous length of time to be waiting really there for your cannabis to arrive, and it's no wonder really that the black market was thriving in Canada. So why Canada makes the news today? It's basically it's a country that we can learn a lot of what not to do when it comes to cannabis legalization. So, you know, that while it is a good thing you can possess up to 30 grams of cannabis, that there is certainly good things they've done, but there's sort of bad things that they did. Um, so we'll get onto them in a few minutes. Just before I move on, I just want to point out to people too that in Canada, although cannabis is legalized, there's still punishments exist with it. One of the punishments that exists still is selling to people who are underage. You know, we'll hear there later somebody crying, "Oh, think of the children," you know, the Helen Lovejoy approach. But basically, you know, if cannabis is sold to minors in Canada, a person could get up to 14 years in jail. So there you go, guys. Like cannabis legalization, it protects kids because the people who sell it to kids are don't give it to kids. They're going to find themselves in a lot of trouble, you know. And that's a kind of a good thing when it comes to protecting kids. We don't want kids to be getting their hands on the recreational drugs that adults in our society use. So it's good there that we see that they've punishments there for that. There's also then silly punishments, you know, if you've got more than 30 grams of cannabis on you, you know, you can still find yourself getting up to a couple of years in prison. I think it's 3 years in prison that you could get for being like possessing too much. If they think you're selling it, then like you can still get up to 14 years if you find yourself in front of the wrong judge. So there's still punishments there in Canada. And yeah, they've made a mess of their legalization over there. And one of the reasons $12 worth of cannabis products. That was $12 million worth of plants and $65 million worth of dried cannabis herbs. That's just ridiculous. Like all because of I don't know what the story was there. They jumped the gun. They didn't have some sort of approval there to be able to grow the cannabis. I don't know, but there was no talks of it being contaminated or anything or being a danger. It was just that look, there was a bit of red tape that wasn't properly tied, and they had to destroy it. Like such a shame, really. But what a mess that Canada made from it. It really was. But look, in other news from Canada, you had the guys at a farm known as SpeakEasy Farms. If you haven't heard of that one before, I know I haven't. But they made the news recently that they're currently undertaking what's going to be seen as a record harvest in Canada. So they're going to be harvesting, wait for it, 60,000 cannabis plants. Ooh, that's a lot of cannabis plants. Or if you were to be looking at it in terms of the cannabis potential, they're going to be harvesting 70 tons of cannabis or 70,000 kilograms of cannabis, depending on what unit of scale you use. But that's quite a lot of cannabis. Just a fun fact for you, okay? If our Gardaí, the Irish Gardaí, were to stumble across a cannabis farm like this, okay, they would value this cannabis. If it was drying, if it was hanging up and drying, okay, and they found the plants like after harvest, they would value that at $1.4 billion, okay? $1.4 billion, absolutely ridiculous. Not dollars, sorry, euro. 1.4 billion euro. That's what our Gardaí would value this crop at. I don't know what the guys at Speakeasy Farms value it at, but I don't think it's up there in the 1.4 billion euro mark anyway. Our Gardaí seem to think it is. Also, another fun fact for you, just to point out how inaccurate our Gardaí are in some of their valuations. If they were to come and raid the farm before the harvest, okay, and they raided the 60,000 plants, they would value 60,000 plants at 48 million only. That's a massive difference, okay? And that's just something to think about, that our Gardaí have a massive overvaluing of dried cannabis herb and a massive undervaluing of cannabis plants. So guys, if I don't know, if I was you, I'd be much rather to be caught with a couple of plants rather than a couple of grams. You know, there's fellas out there who are caught with 14 grams and they're done for cannabis drug dealing, dealing. You can get caught with two, or my buddy John there, who I was up in Enniscorthy with there 2 weeks ago, he got caught with 6 plants, and the judge was able to see that as being personal. He gave him a €500 fine for 6 cannabis plants. So just something to think of there. Our Gardaí would value this at 48 million if they caught the plants, and 1.4 billion if they caught the dried herb. And the guy behind this is a guy known as Mark Geen. So Mark Geen is the man behind SpeakEasy Farms. And Mark, if you happen to be watching this, maybe it's time you go and add an R to that surname and be now known as Mark Green. Just something to think about there. But Mark Geen comes from a family of farmers who are before farming ginseng and cherries, and have now moved over to cannabis. 7 years ago, they applied for their first cannabis cultivation license, and this year is going to be the first outdoor harvest of SpeakEasy Farms. So well done to you guys there, and I wish you all the best on that, and I hope every gram of that harvest is enjoyed by a cannabis connoisseur out there, or a medical cannabis patient who might be alleviating the symptoms of their condition. So onwards from there, I have nothing else to add. Oh, I do have one more thing to add from Canada, actually, before I move on. So in Canada, there are a couple of companies that are trading on the stock market. These guys are, you probably might have heard of them if you're any bit familiar with the cannabis scene, but Canopy Growth and Canopy and what are the other guys? Aurora. They're the two companies that have kind of made headlines there for trading on the stock market and things like that. Canopy started trading on the New York Stock Exchange back in May of 2018. They started selling for around $28, and not long after launching, like they doubled up there within 6 months to just about $52, I think it was. But that was it then. Like they never peaked above that anymore since. That's only been downwards really since. They're now currently trading at $14.50. That was the price at 12 o'clock today, Irish time. It's now 6 o'clock, so the time is pushed on a little bit. But yeah, John, I don't like these guys mainly because look, they're trading stocks and stuff for cannabis. They're making a lot of money on this while still there's people in prison for it, and sadly there's a lot of patients out there suffering because of this. I just don't know how these guys sleep well at night. I suppose comfortably in their big plush beds with all the money that they're making. But there's a lot of money to be made out there from these guys, and I just hope that they're putting some of it back into fighting the injustices that have been, like, people have seen. There's many people out there still suffering, still being criminalized for this, while these guys are making millions off of it. It's ridiculous. Like, it's got to end, and I hope people like SpeakEasy Farms are putting money into the fighting for better policies. For increasing the allowances that our people are allowed to have. It's ridiculous. Like, imagine being told how many tomato plants you can grow out your back garden, like, or I don't know, in Canada, like, what's the story there with restrictions around your alcohol? Like, can you just go into a liquor store and buy as much alcohol as you want? Is there any restrictions there? Why do we treat cannabis any differently? I don't understand that at all. So I hope guys like Mark Geen and others out there are supporting the activists and the fighters out there. People like the Emerys who are fighting for better policies that support the community and not the capitalists out there who want to just make a pile of money. So that's it from Canada for me, and we're on now to America. So there's just one story in America here today, and it's coming from Boulder, Colorado. So the University of Colorado, Boulder, they make the news today because they have some researchers down there, and I have their names here. So we've got Brian Keegan and Daniel Vergat. They're authors of a newly published study, one that basically it's pointing out that they're hoping that machine learning can help with a major gap there within the information from the cannabis market. So obviously in Colorado, as you're all pretty well aware of by now, I'd imagine that they've got legal, recreational and medicinal cannabis for quite a while now. And basically regulators have required that producers and sellers of cannabis have the THC and CBD content and possibly one or two other variants of that included on the labeling of the products. But they don't require much else. So what these researchers are now hoping to do is to bridge that gap there, and they're trying to understand what is it in cannabis that's giving the benefits to people, that's eliciting the response that the person is experiencing. So whether it be, relief from chronic pain, or whether it be maybe increased your paranoia, who knows? There's many things there, many questions that have to be answered. And these guys think that machine learning, complicated algorithms there where they basically input a load of data, and the machine, the algorithm is basically able to make quite an accurate guess there as to maybe the missing compounds in the cannabis plant that are responsible for the patient's benefits. And then with that data, then they can go ahead and test it afterwards. They can go and seek out these chemo profiles that they're identifying and see if their suspicion is correct, if it will elicit that response. It's a very beneficial thing when it comes to medicine making and designing medicines, catering, specifically for patients and conditions. So, a very positive thing there. So I hope that leads to much more information coming out to the benefits of medicinal cannabis. So well done to those guys again, Brian Keegan and Daniel Verrigat. Keegan, that's an Irish name, I think, isn't it? Anyhow. Onwards, guys. We're going to hop on a plane and we get on over to Australia. G'day, mates. Hope you're all well over there in the land down under. So in Australia, basically what you're seeing here on the screen is a graph that is showing the number of medicinal cannabis approvals for medicinal cannabis therapies in Australia. So back in September 2019, you had about 2,910 people, I think that says there, who'd applied for medicinal cannabis therapy and been approved. So that's kind of good there, that they've been approving that many patients back then. But what they've seen since then has just been an upward trend, really, is more and more patients applying and being approved every month. There's a bit of an up and down there for the first few months, but it seems now that since April, there's just been a consistent upward trend up to July and August, where we're seeing that there's two months consecutively there where they have over 5,000 patients being approved for medicinal cannabis therapies. Now, this is a pretty good thing there now, that there's patients being approved for medicinal cannabis therapies. And that's what I see here is people, but there's others who'll see this graph and what they're going to see is customers, patients who are potentially customers. I reported last week about GW Pharmaceuticals and their approval there to have the cannabis or the Epidiolex be sold on the Australian market, and they're going to be seeking approval to have it included on the medical benefit, the medicine benefits, basically the scheme where people can be reimbursed for their medicine in Australia. They're trying to have it approved for that list. And it isn't any wonder why, really. We see the number of patients that are being approved for medicinal cannabis therapies in Australia. It's growing, it really is growing, pardon the pun. But I think it's a good thing that there is more patients being approved, and it is a good thing that there is more medicines being approved in Australia. I just hope that the policymakers there can get their head out of the sand sooner rather than later and change the policies there and stop criminalizing people for growing their own cannabis and for possessing it for whatever reason that they want to possess it for, whether it be for treating a chronic condition or whether it be for just unwinding on a Friday evening after a week-long's grind there, 9 to 5, and dealing with all of the other bullshit that you have to put up with. We shouldn't be criminalizing people for that, and there shouldn't be big massive companies making massive profits off of a plant that you're criminalizing people for at the same time. It's just double standards in my books. That's Australia for you. One last thing from there is that there's another company called Leaf Can that have now been approved for importation licenses to Australia. So these guys now can import and distribute cannabis medicines across Australia since they got the approval there recently. Again, more positive news, but it's patients getting access to medicines, but it's just more companies making money too. These are privately owned companies that are profiting off of the back of patients. Nothing wrong with them making a bit of money, but the money that they're making and the money patients are paying is it's only high because of prohibition, and that's all. So the longer prohibition remains in place, the longer people are just going to be taken advantage of, sadly. The next piece then, guys, it brings us to New Zealand, where in New Zealand there recently there was a leaders debate, and the leaders debate saw the two upcoming contestants in the election, Jacinta Ardern and what's the other woman's name? 1 second now. Judith Collins. So Jacinda Ardern and Judith Collins, they took part in a debate there recently, and it's quite an interesting debate actually. I have a little clip here prepared for you that I'm going to play that is revolving around the upcoming vote that the New Zealand citizens get to have on cannabis. So basically, just before this clip as well, before I started it, at the point at which I'm going to start it, the leaders were actually debating around addiction and meth, because there is quite a bit of a problem with addiction and meth there in Australia. So definitely go back and check that out if it at all interests you. I know it's something that I found be very interesting, and before I go further too, I will definitely say right now that Jacinda Ardern, like if I was there and I could vote for somebody, that's who I would be voting for anyway. She seems like she's got her head screwed on quite well. So I'll just transition there over to that little piece for you, and I'll get that playing. As well, when I played this earlier, the audio didn't come through, so hopefully I got it right this time. Fingers crossed, guys. There we go.
Okay, we've got a big vote coming. It's not just for both of you. It's about cannabis. Judith Collins, have you ever used cannabis?
No, I have not.
Jacinda Ardern, have you ever used cannabis?
Yes, I did, a long time ago.
Judith Collins, how will you vote in the referendum on recreational cannabis?
I've made it very plain that I will be voting against the legalisation of the sale and recreational use of cannabis in our country. I want to protect the mental health, particularly of young people.
So you're voting no?
And I'm voting no.
Okay. Jacinda Ardern, how will you vote in the referendum on recreational cannabis?
Paddy, you know that I made a clear decision that I want the public of New Zealand to decide this, and I want this not to be about politics.
Yes or no, how are you voting in the referendum?
Answer.
And I'll be giving my answer after the election, after New Zealand has decided.
So you won't say yes or no and how you're voting
Oh, I can tell you what I won't do, whip my entire caucus and tell them how they have to
We
vote.
didn't have to do that
Paddy,
at all,
my-
actually.
my
we didn't
vote-
do that at all. We did
Jacinda
not do
Ardern,
that.
if you could actually just come back to the question,
Yeah,
how
just answer
how
your
will you vote on the cannabis referendum, yes or no?
I want the public to decide. And I want them, Paddy, to have faith that whatever they decide, I'll implement. I'm not clear if that will be the case under Judith Collins.
Does she deserve to have the right to silence on how she will
No,
vote on this important
no,
thing?
Paddy,
no,
it's
and I'll
hardly
tell
the
you
right
why.
to silence.
No, I'll tell you why. Miss Ardern has been very clear where she's voting on the end-of-life choice referendum. She's very clear on that. She was very clear on where she would have voted on abortion, all these other things.
Yes, and I advocated on it.
And actually, this is a very serious matter because
Yes,
her
it is.
own government asked Burl, the economist that they like to use, to look at what this would do in this country. 30% increase in cannabis
So should
use.
she tell New Zealand or not?
400 cannabis shops up and down the country. Yes, New Zealanders deserve an answer, and they deserve a straight answer,
Paddy,
not
my
a waffle.
My vote, Paddy, my vote in this is the same as your vote. Look, I will take leadership on issues every single day of the week.
But you're not going to tell us.
I mean,
you're not going to tell us. So can we just get on to another
Yeah,
question
but also-
about the advice from your own chief science advisor, Jacinda Ardern?
Yeah.
You're not going to tell us, so we'll keep moving. Māori are 3 times more likely to be arrested and convicted of a cannabis-related crime than non-Māori. Is that unfair and is it wrong?
Yes,
in
it
your
is
view?
unfair, and yes, it is wrong.
Is that a reason for people to vote yes?
Well, it's a reason for us to fix our justice system, Paddy, because cannabis is one example. I'm sure that you will find...
It's a pretty big example, and
It
you could
is.
wipe it off the books by voting yes.
But it will not...
No, but you could.
It will not
If you
solve
need some
a
help to
problem
make a decision.
across our
Government for 3
entire
years, what have you
justice
done?
system.
If you need some help to make a decision, I'm full of information on the topic. Okay, quickly before the...
I've noticed.
All right, still to come, and more
You've been
important
there,
than ever before, how will these leaders look after your health?
So there you have it, guys. I couldn't really like that accent, actually, you know, man. But yeah, that was quite an interesting piece there, you know. Jacinda Ardern admitting that she has used cannabis in the past, and Judith Collins, like, yeah, she wasn't even like, no, I haven't used it. Like, she probably has, and she's just straight up lying about it, like, because she's a politician at the end of the day, to be honest, and she doesn't want to lose face with her voters. But then, like, you want Collins, like, I can't help but overlook the fact that she went there, like, oh, think of the kids. I'm doing this to protect the mental health of the children. But, like, the New Zealanders are not voting on selling cannabis to children at all. They're voting on cannabis for adults. Like, the children would be protected, to be honest, if cannabis was sold from a store. One of the 400 that she says would open up and down the country if cannabis was to be legalized. Is it not better that cannabis is sold from one of these stores rather than from the street corners, you know, where kids are likely to be recruited into the trade and selling of the cannabis, you know, as well as using it themselves? And isn't it better then if kids do get cannabis, isn't it better that they get it from a recreational market where there's quality assurance and the strength is known and everything? Like, she completely overlooks all of these facts. And she also overlooks the fact that what's the effect of punishing a person, criminalizing a young person on their mental health? You know, the effect of enforcing prohibition on a society. And it seems that in New Zealand, they're no different to other societies where minorities are being kind of penalised more than others in the society. So they pointed out there that the Maoris in New Zealand are more likely to be criminalised for cannabis possession than the non-Maoris. That is unfair, and it's a sad reflection of our drug laws in all of our societies. In America, it's unjust against the blacks and the Latino guys. In Ireland, it's basically it's a class issue. If you've money, you know, if you don't, you're screwed. So that's kind of it. Like, it's seen right across the board in the things. And yeah, she also talks about a 30% increase in use. Like, okay, what's the problem there if you have a 30% increase in use? Is that not a 30% of your population who would have been law abiders now seeing that the law has changed and they're curious about cannabis and maybe they prefer it over alcohol? You know, there's just because there's going to be a 30% increase in use, she tries to make that out as if it's a bad thing. No, proper regulations could deal with that, where, again, better education to people and not stigmatizing people, all of this stuff, you know, and prohibition, again, like, it's just not, it doesn't have a place in our society. It does far more damage to our society than regulation ever would, or the drugs alone ever could. So yeah, that's that there anyway. And yeah, I like the way your man kind of he did grill her a little bit, Jacinda Ardern, in the end there, to get her to say she's going to vote yes. It seems like she is going to vote yes. You know, she seems very supportive of it. It kind of almost slipped there with when she talked about, like, oh, New Zealand needs to change their drug laws, you know, when questioned about how Maoris are criminalised. Like, she said including cannabis. So, like, it seems that she's definitely in favor of changing the laws and ending the criminalization of the cannabis community. So well done, Jacinda Ardern, and well done to everybody in New Zealand involved in that campaign to have cannabis legalized. They go to the ballot box there in the middle of October. I think it's the 18th or 19th or somewhere along those lines anyway. So I hope you have much success there in that, and I hope people see sense and vote in favour of legalising cannabis. So onwards, guys, we go to the UK. The UK, we don't really have much great news here in the UK. In the UK today, there was a cannabis farm factory raided. 177 plants were found, or the evaluation put in it by the UK police was 175,000 UK pounds. That's a lot of cannabis. That's a lot of money. But yeah, it's a massive waste of resources again by the UK police. It's waste of resources because the government could have basically done away with all this a long time ago in the UK. They could have legalised and regulated cannabis quite a while back now, but they haven't, and it just doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime yet. Hopefully soon, like they'll see some changes there, but I haven't seen anything too promising coming out of there just yet. I know there was some comments made there in Parliament today as to removing cannabis from that schedule of things, but I don't think that's going to happen. There's a bill going to be published there as well in the UK in November, and that bill is going to include something around the decriminalisation of cannabis users, possibly the legalisation of cannabis users. I only just briefly came across that article there earlier, so don't know enough about that to comment further, but there's something going to be going forward there in the UK Parliament in November. Hopefully it's something positive. So onwards, guys, from the UK, we jump back now and make our homeward journey, and we're coming all the way back to my hometown, Cork City. And in Cork City today, we had a dazed and confused driver. So a nice play with words there by the headline artist of this one. So they're homing in on the dazed and confused movie, just to spell it out for people who mightn't be in the know. Very good movie too. If you haven't watched it, get nice and blazed and enjoy. But the cops there today in Cork, they stopped the car because he was trying to pull a U-turn at their checkpoint, tried to speed off, but sadly his tyres were probably a bit too bald and he couldn't speed off fast enough, and the cops caught up with him. They stopped him, and they suspected that the guy was stoned. I don't know what might have gave that away. Maybe it was the red eyes in him or something. Who knows? But they tested him anyway and found him testing positive for cannabis. But he tested negative for an NCT disc, an insurance disc, and a tax disc. Yes, he'd none of the above. He'd none of it. And he had bald tyres then to make things worse. And one of his tyres was on banjacks the rim as well. So this sausage driving around stoned, putting everyone at risk on his bald tyres. Seriously, giving the cannabis community a bad name, dude. Just take the bus for fuck's sake. Come on, I don't know. I'm not anti-cannabis driving at all. I definitely think there should be some sort of a sobriety testing check. But I definitely don't agree with the current limit that they've set of 1 nanogram per milliliter of blood. But at the same time, I can't condone driving around on bald tires with nothing on your window. What a sausage. So I'm going to class this guy today as dumbest criminal. So well done, you. Take a bow. In other news, guys, Vera Twomey, the famous Cork cannabis campaigner, she was in an article there today in the Evening Echo, or no, sorry, not the Evening Echo, just the Echo now. They got rid of the evening part. So the Echo Live there had an article up written by Sarah Horgan, and basically Vera is calling for an extension on the emergency medicinal cannabis measures. So if you don't know what the emergency medicinal cannabis measures are, basically in Ireland, Vera has access to a medicinal cannabis license for her daughter Ava, who we see in the picture here, for Ava, which is the book written by Vera. Very well written book too. But basically she has to travel from Ireland to Holland to visit the Transvaal pharmacy, where she picks up her medicinal cannabis for her daughter. And they then have to bring it back home to Ireland, and it's just an extraordinary measures that they are lengths that they have to go to get access to this medicine. Vera long fought to get this far, and she's still fighting to get even further now. So basically, at the start of this pandemic, as I said, the patients had to travel to the Transvaal pharmacy over there in Holland. Because of the pandemic then, they were like, why do we have to get on an airplane? Why are we exposing ourselves to all this unnecessary travel? Why can't the medicine just be sent here? And what our government did then, they're a bunch of clowns. They went away, and rather than just put some measures in place that the pharmacy could in the Transvaal can interact with the pharmacy here in Ireland. No, what these clowns did, and it's what they do best, it's what they really love doing, is giving our hard-earned taxpayers' money away to private businesses. So they went away and they spent there was a freedom of information put in to get this information out. But this was an article there from about a month ago, and they've today spent just over almost €9,000 on private couriers to collect medicinal cannabis and deliver it to the patients here in Ireland. So it's just nonsense. Like we can have two pharmacy workers interact with each other and do the deeds there, but we can have some like unqualified courier handle a medicine and transport it to patients, but we can't have pharmacy workers do it. I just don't understand it. I don't know why we like make all these silly rules around cannabis. You know, in Canada, you're allowed to possess up to 30 grams of cannabis, but you can't possess more. In Ireland, you can have medicinal cannabis, but look, we just can't supply it to you here. You have to leave the country and get it somewhere else. Why? Like, why are we doing this? Like, for cannabis, like it's like all the policymakers around cannabis are highly stoned or something. Like, because they're making the most stupidest like policies ever. I just don't understand it. I really don't. And you kind of almost believe the conspiracy guys out there who say it's because, look, they're waiting to line the pockets of these pharma companies who want to make a pile of money off of the back of these patients. You know, you see there the graph I showed you from Australia, the number of patients who are coming out. There's loads of people in Ireland who want to get access to medicinal cannabis for chronic pain and for a number of other issues. Same in the UK, chronic pain is the major one, again, driving people to look for medicinal cannabis or illegal cannabis to treat the symptoms of their pain. I just don't understand it. Like, we're allowed to go buy alcohol to any level. Like, I could go to the off license after here now, buy a lethal amount of alcohol, and I mean lethal as in it would kill me. I can buy that and no questions asked, get into my car and open it up and chug it down right there outside the store. But with cannabis, like, we can't do that. The medical cannabis patients have to leave the country to get it in another country, you know. In places like Canada where it's legal, you still have the government telling you, like, you just can't have more than this, and you're not allowed to grow more than this many plants. Like, it's just silly. Like, why do we do this for cannabis? I just don't get it. If I want to brew alcohol in Ireland, like, I can brew as much alcohol as I want to a point, and as long as I don't sell it, the government really don't care. Like, there's nobody looking at me and what I'm doing, as long as I'm not selling it. And you know, that's a major issue when we treat cannabis so differently. So guys, that is it for me today from 420 News, from your host Martin Condon, and it was brought to you by Martin's World. So if you haven't heard, now you heard. I forgot to introduce myself here and I started this show actually today. But as I do there at the end of the Facebook Lives, I normally swing on over and check out what's happening in the comments section. So I'll do the same here for the YouTube, see what's happening out there. And yeah, when you cut the slide, all your audio went. Oh crap, I lost some audio, it seems, again. But look, yeah, I'm only learning and getting better. Hopefully it was only for a tiny section of it. I'll see what I can do afterwards. So nice one for your comment there anyway, Scratcher. So Scratcher was just letting me know when I cut to a slide there, all my audio went. Hi on Homegrown, what's the crack? Glad you checked in there. And nice one for checking in, Wooly. Hope you're well. Miss Dawes, 100%. Nice one, Miss Dawes, for taking part there this evening. And Temple Grower, what's the crack out there, Temple Grower? Getting a new audience here, man, on the YouTube Live. As I say, I normally go on Facebook Live, but because of a little technical error earlier, I had to re-record the whole show, and I said I'd go for it on YouTube for a change. So I hope you're all well out there, guys. Who knows, 420 Live might find a new home on YouTube for future shows. Let's see what happens. So guys, that's everything out there. We have a few more comments just flying in. So another one there for Temple Grower. The 30 gram limit only pertains to being in public. At your house you can have as much as you want, But I 100% agree. Nice one for clearing that up, actually. It was something I was trying to figure out, what's the limit a person can have in home. Because I thought the equivalence they were doing to wet versus dry was a bit silly, because if you're a home grower with 4 plants and you harvest them and you're only allowed 150 grams of wet cannabis, it would have been a right old headache. And Greenbird, nice one for checking in, man. Hope all is well. And sorry you missed it, but as I say, it wasn't really scheduled in there. I didn't make any announcement. It was just a spur of the moment thing to go live on YouTube here this evening. And Saints and Scholars, what's happening out there, Saints and Scholars? Hope you're well. I was watching your video there as well the last day. Nice one for the shout out. Hope you're all doing good. And we have Hawks 2020. What's up, Hawks? Hope you're doing good. Guys, thanks everybody for your comments, and thanks everybody who was tuning in, watching this live as we went through the motions. That's the end of it for this evening anyway, and I'll be back with more 420 news with you on Friday at 4:20. So until then, guys, keep her lit, keep her country, stay blazed.